Hello, good afternoon to everybody out there. This is Richard and Kofi doing expanding the conversation. Welcome back to our lively chats. That's right. Where we get the opportunity to talk about so many different things, usually in a very positive way that could hopefully help us personally grow, help you think about some things that might be important. Last week we were talking about resolutions and goals. I thought it was a really good conversation. So make sure you go back and check out that video and all our videos on our page, also on our YouTube page. I'm gonna go check that out. So if you've missed any of our videos where we're just talking, great opportunity to go back and to talk about this. For those who might not know, Rich and I have been doing this now going almost 2 years, and it started because we like to talk, clearly, right? you
Yeah,
know um, and we get on the phone and talk to each other for quite a long time, so many different topics, and we have really allowed that to go into so many different directions, right, Rich? We do etc, we do our Monday, Wednesday, Friday espresso, and whenever we can catch up, we catch up and we talk, right? um because words are powerful, right? Life and
that's
death's
right.
in the power of the tongue, they say, right? And so we talk. So we try to create as much life as we can, and put death to the things that we don't want, right? So that's the purpose of talking, I suppose. But today we want to talk about challenging the unknown. And this is something Richard actually wanted to discuss. So I thought he would kick it off by telling me what's on his mind, and then we'll have a conversation about this. So, Richard, brother, what's on your mind? You seem very businesslike today, like you're ready.
Yeah, I was.
Talk about
I
the
got.
unknown.
I got dressed up for you, man. No, I
Hey,
had a. I
I
had a meeting
appreciate it,
earlier
brother.
today, so I decided I'd show up with my suit. No, welcome everybody. This is yeah, to Kobe's point earlier. I think we've been doing this for a little bit more than 2 years now, and um we approach it very casually, but I for one go back and I listen to all these conversations, and I always learn something even after the fact. So I think it's helpful. It's helpful to us, and as Kobe said, hopefully it's helpful to others. Uh, as I think about the topic here, Kofi, of challenging the unknown, I kind of wonder maybe if we should have titled that "Challenging the Known," but it doesn't matter either way, right? I think it's sort of and this is a big one for me, Kofi, because I think you and I were talking yesterday, and I was, sort of reflecting a little bit on my journey, and where I am today. Not that it's anything to be overly celebrated or anything, right? But the fact of, like, when I think back of, where I was, I had this image of myself in my younger days of, being poor. Um,
Mhm.
I no longer have that image even of myself at that point, by the way. So you can actually change your past into present. So I just want to throw that out there, right? Um, but having this image of myself of being in a socio-economic situation that is less than desirable. I didn't think that I had a lot of things. I didn't think that I had a lot of resources. I didn't think that I could necessarily get very far, but I didn't ponder on it for too long, which is good. And I had a lot of good friends that came along and maybe, without even saying anything, just sort of, took me along on the journey. And so here I am today, having sort of learned a few things and experienced, a few places, and done a few things. And the journey is continuing, right? So, um, to me, the idea of challenging the unknown, and challenging what we deem to the thing that we know about our lives, about the world around us, about people, should be a constant. Every single day, we should be challenging that, because, as we know, much of our limitations, much of our um, beliefs live in our mind and not necessarily anywhere else, right? So if you believe that you can't do something, or that you can do something, you're right in both cases, but it's all in your mind, right? And so a lot of times you have to take that stuff out. And I say take it out because I really believe you have to take it out, Kofi. You gotta you gotta sit down sometimes with a pen and paper and challenge yourself about some of these things that you hold dear to, right? That you grew up always believing that life should be a certain way, or the only way I'm gonna get to X is by having Y, or whatever it is, right? Like, write it
Mhm.
down, challenge it, have conversations, right? A lot of the conversations that we have on a regular basis does that. But even when what we think we know even about ourselves, about somebody else, it's such a limited view. Even if you were to go ask somebody, what do you see, Richard Bolas or Kofi Dalrymple, they might tell you some things about yourself that you've never even thought of, right? You're like, it just never crossed my mind that that's something that I would observe about myself, right? And so I think we have to be willing to challenge this on every single level, because I do believe that for most of us, we leave a lot out there in terms of what we think we know, because we act, I believe we act in accordance with what we think we know, right? And so if we know that we're not good with numbers, then that's how we're going to conduct our entire lives, right? We're never going to try to remember somebody's phone number. We're never going to try to remember our bank account balance, whatever it is, right? We'll tell
Right.
ourselves, I'm just not good with numbers, right? We'll never try to
Right.
balance or count or whatever it is. And so you've got to challenge that, right? What does that mean? That I, or I'm not good at sports. Well, if you've never really tried to play sports, or you've never sat down and really given it like a wholehearted effort and come up with a plan, then you don't really. That's not the truth, right? It's just something that you somehow or the other establish for yourself. And so I think we have to continuously do that, right? And challenge us, even for the things that are good, right? Because a lot of times, um, we can get to a point in life, and this is hard for high achievers, right? Because those who have achieved some success in their life often tend to be much more reluctant to challenge the known, right? Because by
Yeah.
all means, what I've known has gotten me here. How do you mean I'm not right? And so, and I can go on, but I think this is necessary for all of us as we grow older, as we continue on our journey, even as we're younger. Because I think a lot of the things that I challenge now, that I perceive to have been things that were true when I was younger, if I had challenged it earlier, I think I could have been better off today. So I'm going to pause there and let you
Yeah.
chime in, because I know you've got lots of your own
No,
stories.
well, if I understand what you're saying, if I understand clearly, is you're saying we put limitations on ourselves sometimes by what we believe about ourselves, and by putting these labels, right? We there's a lot of things that we could accomplish, but if we simply accept the same labels we put on ourselves, either because of past performance or some other reason, then we never grow past that, right? We become stuck. Even if you're already a high achiever and you have a process that works, you might be willing to stick to that because you don't want to try something else, right? Because that's where you were. And I heard someone said this recently. Actually, someone was giving advice. I think she's a psychologist on YouTube, and she said she always tells herself that she's smart, right? I'm a smart person. And so when she went out to an event, there was something she wanted to try, but for fear of looking not smart, right? She didn't do it. She didn't want to do it because she put this label on herself that she's smart. And so everything that she does, she left no room to feel not smart. And it's okay to feel like you're not smart sometimes, right? It's okay to feel like, yeah, duh, I could have known that. But if once we start putting even good labels sometimes on ourselves, we could limit ourselves, and then that's what I'm understanding from that, right? That we limit ourselves. The thing I want to add to that is when we're talking about unknown, I also think that many of us are afraid of, let's say, we don't know how things are going to turn out if we take certain actions, right? And so there is this fear of unknown outcomes. Like I want to achieve something, but if I do this, there might be unintended consequences, right, for a decision that I take, and that's okay because I think everybody feels that way from time to time. I think one of the things that's really helpful, and I was actually again listening to somebody on this recently, is there are questions, I think, Richard, practically questions that we want to ask ourselves when we come to the point of making a decision, right? And they are important questions that we want to ask and answer. And even if we don't have the answer to those questions, I think they can help guide this idea of what's unknown, because unknown can become known, right, when you get the information. So, like you're saying, I'm bad at sports, right? Well, but you don't really know that. You said that, even if you've done it in the past, you know. So why don't you ask yourself a series of questions about how do I become better at sports, rather than saying that I'm bad at it, right? What would I have to do, and ask ourselves the questions, and then once we answer those questions, we could actually proceed to the next stage. So I think that as part of that decision making process, maintaining that positivity and asking ourselves, what do I need to do in order to achieve this, as opposed to, I don't know what's going to happen. Well, kind of find out. Just go find out what can happen, right? And you might surprise yourself. So I'll kick it back to you. But I noticed
Yeah,
before I see my friend here, Cleveland, who has achieved some amazing things in his life, from a man who's come from humble beginnings, is saying he just used the Nike approach, man. He just did it, and that's coming from a guy who knows what he's doing, right there.
yeah,
All
there you
right.
go. That's good advice. No, one of the things that I think is, is sort of important, right? We live in an exciting time, I think, Kofi, right? Like the most exciting time that we've lived for most of us.
Right.
Um, we've got access to more information. We've got access to more people, right? By online forums, if you want to do right. And so some of these things, I think, in challenging the unknown, I think there's so much information available to us, right? And we can go out and gather information. We can gather perspectives. You talk about watching videos, right, on YouTube, which is, there's so much of that. Um, and I think if we've got if we're willing to examine our lives and we're willing to go challenge the things that we don't know, in order to sort of maybe empower us a little bit more, or to believe that we can do a few more things. Or even when it comes to interacting with people, I mean, like I think even something like we've talked about racism before, right? And the appearance of racism versus what what actual racism looks like, even things like that, right? To go hear people talk about it and get different perspectives. Um, and so I think it's an exciting time to be able to challenge the unknown. One of the things I would say that I've observed that oftentimes seems to scare people is this idea that sort of like if I learn about the unknown, then it shatters the known, and therefore was my life a lie, right? Is my entire life based on a lie? You meant I, but did I believe like so? One of the things that I believed for a long time when I was growing up, because I had no desire to come live in the U.S. I just imagined that somebody had to sponsor you to come live in the U.S., right? And that was my story. I didn't have any relatives living overseas, so Guyana was it for me. But I took that and I made the best of it, and I worked hard and I studied, and I made a little bit of money. I did okay. Right, but I think people are often scared of like finding stuff in the unknown that leads you to believing that whatever you believe is a lie. And while I think that's a rational fear to some degree, I would say that there's a lot more exciting things that we learn when we challenge the unknown and we seek more information, right? And we seek good guidance. It's not as scary as you may think. So I think there are lots of opportunities there, um, even as you're challenging it. And if you're fearful that you may find things that you sort of base your life on things that aren't true, or our limitations, I would say don't blame yourself. Don't feel bad about it, but know that anytime you start that process and you get going, it's almost like and I know you could speak to this too, right? Because you've been gathering information. It's almost like a light bulb goes off, right? And a lot of times um, we live the way I would kind of describe it that I've sort of experienced it is like when I know a little, I almost like live in a small bubble,
Yeah.
with a small group of people, and as I expand my knowing, it's almost like my world expands, right? And people that I interact with, I have shifts in the way I interact with people and the way people interact with me, the way that I perceive people interact with me, the things that I'm willing to go after. So I would almost say that as we challenge the unknown, our world expands, and that's a good thing. So don't be fearful. I'll
Yeah.
end with that. Don't be fearful of challenging the unknown, for the fear that maybe you will
So
feel like your life was built on a lie.
So I think there's something that we have to accept, right? Unless we are omniscient, we're always going to have partial knowledge. Um, and therefore, lack of knowledge or information can't always be a reason for not making a decision. I think life is about making a decision with the information you have. The skill is about making good decisions, right, to move forward and overcome challenges with the limited information that we have. There's a scripture. I think it's in Corinthians, First Corinthians 13:9. So I remember my Bible, right? Um, that says, in plain English, it says, "We know in part, and therefore we prophesy in part." But when that which is known fully comes, then we start to really understand. Put in plain terms. But it says, another way is, now our knowledge is partial, right? That's what it means. It means our knowledge is partial, even when we are trying to do our best. Even when you're trying to do something like prophesy or predict the future, or to give somebody good knowledge, good warning, or good advice, we do so with partial knowledge at all times. And so, to your point earlier, Rich, where we are learning and we are updating our knowledge all the time, and that should be growth, right? That is a normal part of growing up. I was talking to my daughter this morning, and we were going over some math problems, and I said to her, so we're doing, addition and subtraction, and I said, well, you can't subtract, a big number from a small number. And then I go, but you can, Mark, for her now. I'm like, for now, like, you can't, okay? Like, you can't. You could get negative numbers, you could get all these things, but right now you can't. Just go with it, right? And that's kind of how life is, right? That there are times when, most of the times, we have partial knowledge, we have limited information, but we have to make decisions, right? We have to make decisions about life. So this fear of the unknown, I think, could maybe be lessened when we realize we're never going to have perfect information, right? Like, everyone could just chill out and take it easy. You're not omniscient. You're not going to know everything, right? And that's why you have to be willing to try. You have to be willing to figure things out. Kind of like, to Cleveland's point, just do it sometimes, right? And this is how you figure things out, right? Just go for it. Just take a leap of faith sometimes, and just go for it and do it. And in that process, you learn. In that process, you increase your knowledge, right? And so by the time you get to the next decision or the next place, what was once unknown is no longer unknown, right? You're creating this path of knowledge, right? And what becomes known. So I think that's important, that we all understand that we don't have perfect information, and we wouldn't always have all the information, but the skill that we want to learn is how to make good decisions with the limited information that we have, and not allow that to sort of daunt our spirit, right? In terms of making the best decision that we can. Yeah.
Agreed. I like it. I know there's a song that says the more I learn, the less I know
Less I know. Yeah.
about sports. The less I know, the more I want to look around. Yeah,
Yeah.
some good
Yeah.
lyrics there. That was
Definitely.
a UB4 the song with that.
Yeah, man.
But yeah, no, that's good stuff. I think one of the things that I enjoy in my midlife, Kofi, is that I've deemed myself a learner for life. So I think it's exciting.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
the more you go out there and you seek information and you challenge what you think you know and the things you don't know, then I think the light bulb gets brighter each day. So I'm grateful. Grateful for all the things you teach me, my brother, so that
No,
I
but
could be better.
that's what life is, man. Life is,
Yeah,
learning is for everyone.
I
See?
like it. There you go. That
That's what
works.
it is. LIFE. There we go.
All right,
All right, man.
guys.
Well,
Let us know your
you guys,
thoughts.
thanks for joining us, and don't be afraid of the unknown. All right.
So,
And drop your comments, and we appreciate it again. Guys, take care.
bye, everybody.
Bye.